Let's talk about intersectionality and how it affects autistic people. Hi, I'm Janella. I'm autistic and have ADHD. And I especially would like to give a shout out to Kelly, who has these awesome resources. And if you want to look more into intersectionality or just resources about autism, definitely check out that profile page and the resources they provide in their link tree. So I really want to talk about this topic and have been wanting to talk about it for a really long time because it is so relevant to people of color who are autistic. So first off, if you've never heard of what intersectionality is, intersectionality means that many different social influences make up a person's experiences. Examples of those things are social influences or gender and sexism, ethnicity, racism, disability, and ableism. So another way of thinking about intersectionality is the different identities of yourself, but also especially different identities that society labels and sees you as. Intersectionality is really important to look into, especially for people of color autistics, because before people are aware of our disability, our autism, they will focus on our race, our gender, our class, everything else that kind of defines us before getting to the conclusion that it's autism that contributes to our behavior. This can lead to a lot of POC individuals being misdiagnosed, undiagnosed, or in a lot of cases that we're seeing now, late diagnosed, like myself. So just to give you a little bit more context and understanding, I'm going to use my own personal experience of how intersectionality affected me and my perception of autism, as well as how I can see the perception of autism affect other POC individuals. So before I got my formal diagnosis, or before I even considered autism, I had always knew I was different, but autism was never ever on my radar as to why I was different. The things that distinguish my experiences the most in my life, for me, were my race and my gender. So I'm an Asian woman, and the way society looks at Asian people, and especially Asian women, is that they see me as studious. They see us as like quiet and reserved people that keep to themselves. But then there's also the other aspect that is kind of developed because of Japanese culture and anime and the things that kind of are mixed within Asian culture, where we're like considered cute or quirky or exotic. With those expectations, if I appear different in society will use one of those stereotypes or behaviors to excuse my autistic behaviors. So even for myself, because autism was never brought up as an option to consider, or any kind of mental illness or disorder in my family, even though many of us have undiagnosed and diagnosed mental disorders. Anytime I was out of line in my family, my behavior, or me being unladylike or being disrespectful as the youngest child and a female in an Asian household, was used as the reason rather than looking into other reason or options to explain that behavior. One behavior that I recognize now was very much my autism and my overstimulation and not being able to really vocalize that, because I did have issues with selective mutism as a child, is that when I would go into crowds, especially crowds I was unfamiliar with, or even with families and friends, I would get extremely anxious, and I would really immediately want to get out of that area or environment. And this, of course, caused a lot of trouble with me and my family, because if we had any family events, my parents would think of me as just being disrespectful, me not being polite, me being very rude, especially for Asian cultures where you have to respect your elders or older people. So that kind of behavior, where I was really overstimulated and really upset and just wanting to leave, was thought of as very rude and unacceptable. A lot of times, even when I was younger, they would say I was just being dramatic, that I would eventually grow out of it. But then once I got into my teen years, and then I got into more anger outbursts, which were more of me exhibiting meltdowns and more overstimulation because of being burnout or anxiety and depression also happening at the same time. They would get annoyed that I was even tired or that I'm saying these things at all, because I'm sure even just immigrant families or people or individuals from immigrant families will relate to this is that when you're a child, especially of an Asian immigrant family, their children have so much more than what their parents grew up with. So their parents will guilt trip us into saying things like, you shouldn't be tired. I had to do all this when I was your age. You have so much that I didn't have, and therefore why are you even being tired? Right? This isn't something you should even think about or consider, and you're just not working hard enough. And of course, being under that kind of mentality and household, I just thought maybe I am not being grateful. Maybe I'm not trying hard enough, even though I really was. The more I tried to be like more Asian or work on trying to be more ladylike, which is to Asian culture is like being quiet, respectful, knowing your place kind of thing. And after putting in that effort, or in other words, becoming more high masking, I still had constant miscommunication and misunderstandings with people before my diagnosis. I had unexplainable reactions and outbursts to noises, crowds, changes in routine that those around me would just get annoyed that I was bringing so much attention to or spoiling the fun, when those were just instances where my autism was the reason behind my behaviors. But that was never considered. If we don't consider how intersectionality plays a role, then the support and understanding for people of color who are autistic individuals will be overlooked and brushed off. The challenge that POC autistic individuals face with a hidden disability like autism is that the world will use what they see first to excuse or reason with our behavior and needs and issues, rather than considering that autism or any mental disorder could be the answer. Along with social stigma and ignorance, we also face these same obstacles within our own community. Minority communities will shun or shame autistic individuals whenever they exhibit traits that draw negative attention to their community or to their race, like stimming, scripting, echolalia, food sensitivities, you name it. These are the types of autistic traits that can get us in trouble with family, but even more so outside of our community, out in the real world. There's also inequities between different autistic POC and how society deems what behaviors are socially acceptable. For example, as a low-support autistic Asian woman, if I stim and script, many people can see that as me being quirky or cute because it falls in line with kind of like Japanese women behavior and anime and the very weird infantilization of Asian women. But if a Black or African American man were to stim and script in public, they would be seen as dangerous and in many cases leading to authorities getting involved. Another reason why I advocate for diversity in neurodiversity. Seeing and hearing from more individuals who look like me as well as other people of color who are neurodiverse will help society see the spectrum that autism is and how it doesn't discriminate against race, class, or gender. Now, I'm not in any way trying to diminish the experiences of other autistic white individuals and the challenges that they face every day. Something to just remember is that when those in power are the majority that look like you are already at an advantage and have more in your favor than we will ever have as a person of color. So bringing more awareness to this community and truly diversifying the voices that we invite and listen to benefits all of us.